been keeping it, on top of the honey flow, and we've been trying to make sure that we're not getting honey bound. And so we did a lot more honey demos and classes and pulled honey kind of throughout the season. So it made it a little bit easier for us on the treating side. We made quite a lot of honey, I think.
Yeah, we really did.
There was a question about the state label requirements for, I'm assuming, honey. Brandon, you want to talk about yours?
Yes. Yeah, well, so I don't think that there are state requirements unless someone state specifically has it. There are very simple requirements, and I think that you can find them on the Honey Board website. If you aren't adding anything to your honey, like a coloring or a flavoring, there are very few requirements. You just need the ingredients, which you would just put as pure honey. You need the nutrition label. And then we also include where we bottled it. And I think that's it.
I think we need a recall number.
Oh, right. Yeah. And then that's right. We every jar that we fill, we've got a little metal detector to make sure there's no bits of like metal. Maybe if because we use a metal filter, like sieve filter, to filter it through. So we just want to make sure there's no metal shards in there. And then we have this little stamp thing where we can put the date and like what lot it came from. So we consider each 5-gallon bucket that we fill a lot, and we stamp that on top so we know which bucket that honey came from and what date. I think we put a date on there. Maybe not, because maybe people think that was. I'm not in charge of the bottling, clearly, but I was in charge of trying to figure out what all we needed to include on the label. So.
I think that pretty much covers it all.
Yeah. And then the net weight.
Oh yeah, that's right, net weight.
Net weight, yeah. Thanks, Lou. I think there were questions previously in classes on whether or not the warning for little infants was a requirement or not. And I think it's a recommendation, but not a requirement, that honey is not to be eaten for, infants under the age of 1. Or the other one where it says honey can naturally crystallize. Those are all optional extra labeling details.
Okay, so these would meet the requirements for selling in a grocery store? Or
yeah, but you would have to have certain bottling requirements, making sure that you're bottling in a food safe kitchen, and that you're following the food cottage laws in terms of having the inspections and things like that.
Yeah, Rick, in order to have honey sold on store shelves, you have to bottle in a commercial kitchen
and have that inspected for honey.
Okay.
Bottling.
I don't.
So would a locker plant be the same as a grocery store? Because our local locker plant asked if they could sell my honey because they like local stuff.
If you're not selling it, like if it's on store shelves, then it would be needing to be bottled in a commercial kitchen.
Okay.
I don't know
and that commercial kitchen has to be inspected for honey. It can't just be a food kitchen. Sorry.
I don't know that honey falls under that if you're not adding anything to it.
To my understanding,
I think you're right. Like Iowa, Randall.
Oh, so maybe it's different state by state.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a cottage food law in Iowa that honey falls under a certain category.
Maple syrup, honey, that sort of thing falls under a certain category. We have an extension sheet about it. If there's any Iowans, and I'll put that in the chat.
We also have one for Nebraskan. So I don't know if Luke, you can pull that up for.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it here.
There's another question in here from Patrick regarding insurance. If you need insurance, if you're not selling directly to the consumer.
That I don't know. The stuff that I'm talking about is direct to consumer sales.
Patrick says that some stores will require it, I think. There's also, while Lucas is pulling that up.
Fairway's the only store that's ever asked me about insurance. I sell at HapBee and they never asked about it. I don't know if they just assume it's on me or what, but Fairway's the only one that's ever asked for it as far as in my dealings.
And then Kevin, do you want to post the link to the conference information? He's posting on here on the chat that they're hosting a conference March 5th. Bob Bine is the keynote speaker along with local speakers, and the proceeds will go to Hive for Heroes.
So I did find for on UNL's page for it'd be, and I'll share it here, but it's food systems, and it says that honey does fall under the cottage food law that was put in 2019, but it says with that you can sell at fairs, your home, festivals, and then other public events or online for pickup or delivery. So that would be what honey falls under for the cottage food law.
But not in stores unless it's commercial. Ouch. The insurance and the honey food law. Sorry guys, I'm not really a honey. That's out of my lane there. So there's the link. I see Randall's put a link up and Luke has put up the links. There was a question from Tony about what temps should you pay the entrance reducers, your entrance reducers on your hives. I don't have a particular temperature that we start putting entrance reducers on or off, but we certainly look at the strength of the colonies to see if they're really strong still, or are they starting to get smaller and they need to have a little bit more the ability to guard from robbers, especially now at this time of the season. Robbing is a huge problem. There's Randall, I have a picture of it.
I have video if you want me to find it. They're crazy. Okay, yeah, I'll find those old slides. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, actually, I think I have a video from today too. Let's see if I can pull that one up. Robbing is definitely a huge issue. So I would suggest that if you think that you see robbing happening, you would definitely want to tape up those holes and reduce the entrance. We use the Marion Mouse Guard bottom board, so we don't have to put in reducers, but if there are holes in the boxes, this is the time of the season we'll start patching them if we see it. It's very clear when you see a lot of robbing going on, especially after an inspection. People are often leaving the yard very quickly and not turning around and just looking at the bees, after you leave. Because you'll see sometimes if you took a long time at a colony, or there was a weak colony that's been tagged as, kind of a easy target, you'll be able to very quickly tell that there's a robbing frenzy going on, shortly after you've left or inspected. That's kind of what happened today too. We saw that. Randall, did you get your video?
I'm still looking. I'll just need another second.
Oh, I can play this one. Here we go. This is from today. Can you see the video?
Yeah, we can see it.
So this is a dead out colony basically, and the colony is just robbing the bees all around are just robbing it like crazy. We need to take it out of the yard. But you can see I was just filming how crazy the frenzy is. And it's obviously the weaker colony. And so if you left this and there was still bees in it, they probably won't survive this robbing frenzy. Sometimes we'll bring a wet sheet or bed sheet and a bucket of water, and we'll just drape it over the weaker colonies after an inspection. Let the bees just kind of chill out, make sure the robbers are unable to access the colony at all. The wetness of the sheet just keeps the colony cool. And then after about 15 minutes, the bees will go somewhere else because there's nowhere to go. So this colony is already a dead out, so we're just going to pull that equipment. But if it was a small colony, this would probably be dead by the time we come back for the next inspection. Oh, I gotta turn off the video. I can still hear them buzzing.
Well, I can't find my video, but what tipped me off to it was someone else at the farm where we keep our apiary was saying, they said, it looks like your hives are overflowing with bees. And I said, what? And they said, it just looks like they're like pouring out the sides. And when I went over and looked at it, what was happening was all the bees were congregating around the edges under the lid and trying to cram their way in. And when enough of them would congregate up, they'd all fall from the weight. I was able to find some of the photos from the robbing. So maybe I can share that. Let's see.
What are some of the things that you do to kind of prevent robbing?
Well, once they get started, there's not much that you can do to make them stop. So here's some robbing when we were trying to when we had an open honey super and we were taking out some of the honey frames. And there you can see them all congregating around the side trying to cram their way in. Yeah, I thought that this was, oh, it is a video. Okay. I was trying to get like the overflowing bees because they're just crazy. They're like drug addicts trying to get in there. They have a one-track mind. I use entrance reducers to keep them from getting inside the weaker hives. Other than that, maybe I'm not a skilled enough beekeeper. I'm not sure I know any other tactics to get them to lay off.
Just the wet bed sheet tactic.
Where you throw the wet cloth over the top of the hive?
After the inspection, yeah.
So,
the other thing that we've done before is, have you ever seen those metal mesh cages? They're kind of like a metal frame with mesh screening. They're for like insect experiments. They're cage.
Sure,
cage studies. Sometimes you can get them like 6x6 or some kind of dimension like that. We've also used kind of like a modified tent setup, but basically the insect cage is meshed at all sides. It has a zip up door. You can walk in. We cut the roof off the top of it, and then we would just lift the whole thing over the colony and then do the inspection. So then any of the bees that belong to the colony would fly up and out of the hive, but the robbers would come in from the side. So we could take our time to do inspections and not have to worry about the robbers, and then put it back together and leave, and they wouldn't be able to access anything.
Wow,
but it
must have been a really robby apiary.
Yeah, well, in the fall, it can get really bad. And if you have to go through each frame and grade them for brood and for honey and for pollen, like normal beekeepers might do a quick queen check. But if you're doing it for research, you're opening up every frame and you're like trying to assess what's on the frame. Your colony could be open for like half an hour, way longer than it needs to be. If you're doing really slow inspections, don't do them at this time of the season. Just don't. It's not worth the risk of getting your colony robbed out. Just make sure it's got a queen. You don't even need to find the queen. Just make sure she has eggs, and that's really put some treatments on, and that's it. Don't go through any kind of thorough inspections this time.
Well, so one thing I did last year that I was thinking of doing this year was I want my bees to clean out the extracted honey frames, and I put an inner cover on top and then set those frames on top of the colony, but the bees weren't cleaning it out. And so what I ended up doing was just a distance away from my apiary, setting up sort of a robber's cove where the bees could go and rob it all out from just that spot. But I felt like since it was far enough away, I didn't see robbing happening between the colonies themselves. Whereas I've heard that if you place it near your apiary, you might just start a robbing frenzy. It might, once they start, you can't really stop, and they'll start in on the colonies too.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I don't know why they weren't cleaning them out with the inner cover on top and then the empty honey super frame, the honey super with the empty extracted frames on there. And they just weren't taking it.
I don't know. Are you still going through some kind of flow, or still got some kind of nectar source out there, or is it?
You'd think that they think that there's a flow going, the way that they are producing brood and getting enormous still. I've caught 5 swarms in the past 3 weeks.
Really?
Yes. I don't know. We ran out of equipment. We have 80 colonies and we're out of equipment. And we don't want to order more frames because like their populations should start dwindling, but I don't know what to do.
You know, have you been in your inspections? Have you gotten down to that bottom box? Because sometimes, you know, I find a lot of times in the fall, if they've been weak or requeened, sometimes that bottom box is a little bit of pollen and a lot of empty comb. So you might have to do some reversals. You might have to check and make sure they're not vulnerable to sliming from beetles.
Right. We haven't had hive beetles be a problem here yet. We haven't had small hive beetle in our apiaries, luckily. But I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
But okay, that's smart. Maybe we could do some reversals. That's smart.
We're just starting to see beetles in one of our yards in Nebraska City. So it's starting to slime out the weak ones. We're starting to see just the adults and some of the strong ones. I only saw one slimed out colony in the apiary we inspected today, but it was gross.
Yeah, it was. And then
it's the same one that's being robbed out, the one you're looking at.
Yeah. And so we made sure to drop down boxes from 2 to 1 for hives that just there weren't enough bees to be in 2 boxes, and just trying to kind of help make sure the bees are just a little crowded. That way they can make sure to police the small hive beetles.
And to police the robbing too, because you need stronger hives. Mm-hmm. If you've got a bunch of weak hives with a bunch of strong hives, your weak hives are vulnerable to getting robbed out by the strong ones, who are just going to find them as easy targets and easier food sources, and to forage for what's little left, you know, in the landscape. Especially if you go through and then do a thorough fall inspection, then you've opened them up and you've kind of exposed them. And if they've got a lot of room to police, it's really hard for them to protect their resources. So it doesn't really matter if you reduce their entrance. If they still have too much room to guard, that's going to make it really hard for them to protect from the beetles and the robbers. You want to bring them down to whatever size is appropriate.
What we're getting this for the past month, every time we open a colony, is yellow jackets come out of everywhere to try to rob.
Really?
For some reason in Ames, it's just been a huge yellow jacket season. I've gotten so many extension calls about yellow jackets. I've got 3 yellow jacket nests in my backyard. They're everywhere this season. I don't know what the deal is.
Do you ever use those little bottle traps?
No, like ones you make at home, or?
Yeah.
I've used them for moths, for like wax moths, but never for wasps.
I've seen I've heard some beekeepers use them pretty successfully, these little bait traps around the apiary to get the yellow jackets down. But sometimes, just like the Japanese trap beetles, you know, if you're baiting them, you want to make sure you're baiting them away from your apiary, not around your hives, because then you're drawing them in, you know. So it's just like baiting Japanese beetles and other pests in your garden. You want to make sure those bottles are away from your garden and away from your hive. So bait them, you know, by the fence posts or by the tree shrubs or something.
That's just like those lighted bug zappers. You want to buy those for your neighbor.
For those of you who don't know, for the baits, it's like you take a water bottle and you cut a very small slit towards the top, and then you put some sort of bait in the bottom. So to attract moths or things like that, you want something fermenty. So you might put like a banana peel and some vinegar, and then they'll get in there, but they can't find that tiny little exit entrance that you made. So they'll fly around the top and they won't be able to get out. Yeah, just like a plastic bottle.
Mhm.
But yeah, maybe I should do that.
It's a great student project. Make some bait traps for us. How's your honey extraction going?
Good. We have most of it extracted. We're saving a few supers for demonstrations and for the beekeeping class we're teaching, so that they can do hands-on demo. Let's see, maybe our 12 frame electric extractor, it's really hard to get it loaded right so that it's not like rocking back and forth. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm really worried it's just gonna jiggle itself apart. I have some I can share. We took some photos and video today, but let me. Well, that's not
Randall, sometimes what I'll do is just really try to, like, if I have heavy frames, try to put them like one on the other side to like kind of balance it out that way, and that kind of helps.
Yeah, that's what we've been trying to do, but it didn't always work.
Yeah.
Am I sharing? Sorry, I'm trying to find. Here it is. Okay. Let me cancel this share and try again. You'd think after a year and a half of using Zoom, I would be a pro at it. And instead, I'm just... Oh, this was a swarm I caught, and we had no equipment, so I had to use a cardboard box.
Nice.
And then I did take a quick little video of me dumping the box into our last one of our last deeps with frames. So that was a lot of fun.
That used to be the old treatment for clearing AFB colonies.
What, put them in a box?
Burn the frames and the equipment, torch the equipment, and throw all the bees in a cardboard box and feed them, you know, with syrup, and then let them draw out some clean comb before you put them into a new box. Let them flush out all the pathogens and stuff.
That's interesting.
That was, you know, people don't get AFB anymore, so.
So here's our little setup. We have a food safe room out there at our research farm where we keep our apiary. So that's really nice because they do all this. It's a horticulture research station. So they do all this food processing and sales. So we had a small group of people helping us with the uncapping and extracting. Oh, I don't want the sound on this video because okay. So here's all of us standing. We have the extractor bolted down to a plastic pallet, and we all have to stand on it and try to hold it in place, because otherwise it's gonna rock back and forth like crazy. I don't know how well the video is loading via Zoom, but yeah, you can see it's just kind of out of control. But yeah, it was fun. And then we've already gotten started bottling as well. So I think I have a couple photos of that. Let's see. Yeah. So then we've also started bottling. We do bottles of 2 different sizes right now. And so that's Brandon, and he's in there. I think he's putting labels on and marking like the lot number for food safety recall kind of purposes. I think that's all the photos I have. But, yeah. So it's been fun. It's just it's a lot of work.
Yeah. We have some photos too. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get them together right now, but are you getting a lot of helpers to get and help with the honey extraction, or are you kind of doing a lot of that on your own?
In theory, I have a lot of helpers. They're just all unavailable. So like today, we actually set aside, we have workers out there at the hort farm that on rainy days like today are willing to help out. But actually today I had set aside several supers full of frames, because we received grant funding from a university program called the Student Innovation Center. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to look at marketing honey that is grown at sites that incorporate the practice of prairie strips, which is where farmers can put strips of prairie in their field. And it helps reduce erosion and nutrient runoff, but it also provides good habitat for beneficials. And our colonies that we've set at the edge of these fields are just exploding. They're huge. And so we see it as like a good potential site. We have 20 colonies at at 3 different prairie strip sites. And 3/4 of them were all 3. The purpose wasn't honey extraction. So we were helping them expand. But 3/4 of them all have 3 or 4 deeps on them. And they were their first year colonies. First year, they started from packages in May, which is crazy to me. We started them late, and then at these sites, they've gotten huge.
Are they light honeys?
It's darker. The honey's darker at the strip site. And we're gonna send it away for analysis as part of this funding that we have. Anyway, we have this funding to look into prairie strips as like a niche market, or having it be something that would be a value added for folks if they were interested in purchasing honey at a place where like a conservation ag practice was practiced. And they're supposed to, in theory, there's all these students that are part of this Student Innovation Center team. And so today we set up extraction expecting the students to come. None of them came. So we had a team of 3 people instead of yeah, it was, I don't know. Student volunteers aren't exactly the most reliable.
Do you give them honey? Because you can be like, well, you didn't earn your honey. You didn't earn your keep.
Well, I don't see why we should give them honey now. I mean, they could have, but you're right. Maybe, yeah.
Because we give the student clubs, honey, and sometimes they help us bottle. Sometimes they used to help us harvest, but I don't think, it depends on the students and their experience. But now they kind of sometimes help us bottle or help us do outreach.
Yeah, I could go about it differently. I was just surprised that we had like a week of back and forths trying to find the right date where people would be able to come. And then anyway, did you put together some pictures of your extraction?
Yeah, actually I did just put together pictures. So I just put together a bunch of pictures. So let's see. Those are just reminders for us to send out you want to send out the email list again?
Yeah, I can do that.
I just had a couple of pictures for reminders, and then I had some other things to share. This time of the year, we do see a lot of sliming and beetles, so watch out for this wetness and the larvae of the small hive beetles. Oh, is that a video? These are the pests that kind of creep me out the most. I really don't like watching them and looking at them. Yeah. So oftentimes these colonies get so big, we neglect to go down to the bottom box just to peek. And sometimes I'll split open the box and look down to see how many bees are down there. Because oftentimes if they're not occupying that bottom box, then you could potentially have just a bunch of combs. It's just going to end up being wasted with beetle larvae. This is robbing. Oftentimes you can see what Randall just showed was that spilling of the bees, but outside the entrance, you can also tell if a colony's been marked for robbing if you see a lot of debris coming out the entrance. We often try to start inspections early when it's cool before they start foraging. We'll try to bring extra lids or bottom boards or covers to keep the opposite, the colonies closed while you're going through them, or we'll use damp sheets. The robbing just started. So the other thing is just try not to keep equipment out by the hives, because that's just going to target them, make them more vulnerable to robbing. This was just a frame of resting robbers that we found last year. You can see that all the ones that are circled are younger bees, but everything else is kind of bald and shiny. That's a nice, sign that these are older bees that are kind of busy robbing. Oh, this is something that we saw in our inspections this week. It's something I've never actually seen before. So this is a huge colony, but I pulled this frame. The queen was on this frame, and you can see she's intoxicated or immobile or something's going on. Very strange. I thought she was dead at first. I almost sampled her.
A sick queen.
Have you guys ever seen something like this?
Had she fainted or something? It seems like I'd read an article in the American Bee Journal, I don't know, probably a couple of years back, about fainting queens where they look like they're dead, but they come to later.
What do you mean fainting? She does come to later. She does. It takes 10 full minutes. Actually, from my videos, it takes 13 minutes from when we first see her dying like this to when she starts crawling back on the hives again.
I want to look up that article about fainting, because earlier this summer I was training. I was out with our student workers for the first time, and we found a queen, and she wasn't marked. And so I said, okay, I'm going to demonstrate to you how you mark a queen. So I grabbed the queen by her wings, and I put her on my finger, and then I held her very gently, marked her thorax, and put her back down. Dead, or looked dead. Maybe she had just fainted. Because I did not squeeze her very hard at all, but I looked like a big idiot being like, oh, this is how you mark a queen, and then her just dead. I thought that I had killed her on accident, but I couldn't believe that I had squeezed that hard. I've never killed a queen marking her before. So I don't know. I'll have to.
It's been a while back, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in the American Bee Journal.
Yeah, and I think it was about marking queens too, wasn't it, Cody?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was too.
I didn't mark her. I mean, what in the article did they talk about reasons for fainting queens or causes, triggers for fainting?
Yeah, it seems like it was just kind of an unexplained phenomenon. I mean, stress, but yeah, it seemed like the time was like they might come back too in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I just Googled it, and there's a whole bunch of things for fainting during marking. There's a bunch of links.
Let's see if I can share the video of her doing fine now. There she is. So there she is, marked 13 minutes later. But I didn't mark her. So I was just inspecting the hive, and she was laying on her side. And then we put the frame up to see if I should, what would they do with the, dying queen. And she, 13 minutes later, starts crawling slowly and starts recovering. Maybe
it looked like they were.
A nap?
It looked like they were really worried about her, though. They were ending her.
licking her, attending to her, feeding her. Fainting queens. Interesting.
Drama queens.
Drama queens. Is that what they're called?
No, I just saying that. They're not actually injured, they're just being dramatic.
Yeah, I guess, I almost sampled her because I thought there was something wrong with her. So I'm glad we didn't, but it's a strong colony. So the other thought was, what if, she's working herself to an exhaustion and she just passes out for a little bit, like power napping. You're just zonked out and then you wake back up. It's not fainting, it's power napping. I don't know. We'll see. Because she's still, she's a pretty productive and strong queen. This image right here is just a reminder that oftentimes you'll see a buildup of entombed pollen cells if you're in an area with a lot of chemical exposure. And we're starting to see some of that in some of the hives that we've been inspecting, just a little bit here and there of the entombed pollen. Oh, and this is state fair stuff. We did state fair judging. Here's Luke and Rogan. Tokash is a master student, and then Megan Vetter is our Nebraska Beekeepers Association president, and they were all training on honey judging. So I think it's a good time to plug. If you haven't done this before, you should try to enter in your county or state fair, because it's a really good opportunity to engage with the community beekeepers, as well as kind of showcase, outreach to the public about honey. So it seems like every year we start to get kind of ebbs and flows with entry. So I want to try to plug the state fair again to have people think about entering. We've got liquid honey, creamed honey, cut honey, and comb honey, and use categories all, in this competition, as well as arts and crafts and stuff like that.
I did the Iowa State Fair for the first time this year.
How'd it go?
I got first place in Queen Lion jars and second in bears.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
My daughter just turned off the light. I've been extracting honey in the shops full of bees. She's trying to draw them to the other end.
That's great news. Congratulations.
Yeah, we were pretty excited. That's made for some little marketing on Facebook and putting the word out there about us. So yeah, it was fun.
It's a hard process to go through, because you really get so we go through quite a lot. There's quite some metrics to go through. We look through flavor, we look through taste, we look at texture and moisture. We also use the polariscope. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. That's this piece of equipment right here. It's a light with two planes of glass that convert the lines of reflective light in the opposite direction, so it can shine through these fragments and fibers and anything really small that you normally wouldn't be able to see, because it's making it more reflective. So we use that polariscope to look for crystals and debris. This is where you get a lot of points knocked off, or moisture and then debris, or things that you see. So in the light, honey that is very, very clear might actually see a lot. You can see from this image all the fibers and all the hairs or they're not hairs, but they're fibers in the honey. This is, I think, oftentimes what happens is when you've got these metal strainers or filters that people will wash and reuse, sometimes people will dry them with paper towels, which then the fibers of the paper towels end up drying on the filter. And then the next time you bottle it, it ends up in your honey. So we like to remind people that when you're using your filters and drying it, to make sure you're not drying it with paper towels or things that can scuff off fibers.
What's the ideal moisture content?
Well, you get really high, you don't get any more points for anything below 16%, but you get 20 points for 16% moisture. And then you get 0 points for anything above 18.6. So it's a huge game changer if you've got, moisture at 17.9 and then someone else has 16.8. It's a big point difference. Wow. So the moisture is really a huge advantage if you can get your moisture down.
Which isn't too hard to do. I mean,
if you have a refractometer and know how to, check it and recheck it.
Yeah.
We will write the moisture content on the lid of the honey. So a lot of small scale beekeepers or hobbyists will enter into the county fair just to see what their honey moisture content is, because we write it on the lid and they get their submission back.
We're about to get a digital refractometer because I'm done. We're about to get a digital refractometer because I'm done with the old school one. Like, depending on the temperature of the room I'm in, it's just complete. I can't do it. I tried to do some to check some moisture content today, and it was just the end of the day on Friday after a long day, and I was like, I'm done with this. We're getting a digital one. Yeah, it's been pretty frustrating. So
we still use the old school one.
Yeah. The analog, with calibration, you need calibration liquid, and it's been.
You know what? Actually, the one that we have doesn't require calibration too much. I mean, we calibrate it every couple of years, but it really hasn't required much. It has the adjustment reading at the back end, but we've had it tested before. And it's decent. It's like a really robust old piece of equipment that works really well.
Well, I calibrated mine last week, and then I put a honey sample in today, and it was completely weird. And then I put the calibration on there, and it was off from what I had calibrated last week. So I don't know. It's been pretty a frustrating process.
Where are you storing it?
In an office.
Oh, so room temperature, not
room temperature.
In a hot truck or anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's wrong with your.
I don't know, because I also calibrated it in the same room, like, so it wasn't like anyway, it's a silly complaint. Well, if we get a digital one, we won't have to worry about it. So
I'm just showing the black flecks too. That's pretty common that we see in honey entries. That's like little pieces of pollen. Sometimes they're large enough where you can tell it's actually a piece of the bee. So that just kind of shows that maybe the filtering might have not been as strong as it could have been, or filtering could have been finer. So then somebody asked about comb honey. We do have comb honey. This is our student Shelby Kittle's U-Care project. She produced a bunch of comb honey, and look at the beautiful rainbow spectrum of honey that she got. This is still in one yard. Our pollinator garden on East Campus. But some of the colonies chose to forage on darker resources, nectar sources, and others chose to forage on sources that had light nectar sources. So we got this really.
Did she take comb at different times of year? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Did she
no,
take
she extract. No, this is all within. This is all within the 2.5 months that she compressed the bees and then harvested the comb honey. Shelby, are you on here?
No, I don't think she is.
Okay. When did she start? She did her compressions in June, right? In June.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Early June, and then from June, July, mid-June, July, August, they basically drew out all this comb and then built out the honey, and then she just started pulling and harvesting about, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What is she selling it for?
$20.
For the big ones, $20?
$20 for the big ones. And then she does these, this is a state fair. So she does $1 for these bite sizers. And then she does, are they 2 ounces, Luke? She does a medium size.
Yeah, let me look real quick. I have something that says.
Yeah, and so she does, I think she does fairly well depending on which vendor she's selling it at. They have, the audience likes to choose, you know, likes to prefer to buy, you know, I like at the state fair, you've got a lot of people who are trying to buy tasters for their kids. So the one bite-sized pieces go a lot quicker. But at some of the farmers market and at some of the store vendors, the bigger 20-piece, you know, 20-pound, $20 a pound comb honeys are the ones that are preferred.
Wow.
Judy, Shelby did have 2 ounce comb honey also.
Yeah, that's what I remembered. So her project, her undergrad research project is looking at how to most efficiently produce this comb honey using what size strip to maximize the profitability of comb honey production. And then the other part of her research is looking at the marketability of the 3 sizes and looking to see if there's a pattern of cutting your comb. So basically the way that she's kind of marked out her frame is that she's able to maximize her profits by cutting every little square piece, using the large ones for the 20-piece pieces, and then all the extras for the 2 ounce and the 1 bite-size ounce. And so she's basically able to take every little portion of it and make a profit. And then her research is looking at that marketing the difference. Is it economically more sensible when you consider the labor input, the costs of the containers and the effort to cut and clean the comb, you know, keep store and market the comb? Is it worth cutting it in these 3 sizes? Which ones market better? Where do they market better? And so she's got some really interesting stuff going on. Can you send her, can you post her business contact, Luke, so that if anybody's interested in getting her comb honey, this is the time. She's going to run out quickly. And then these are just images from our mead making class, Sheldon with his little, what is his little karaoke microphone. There's a lot of people submitted mead for us to try. So Kimmel Orchard was really kind enough to help us serve all the tasters. And we basically had, I don't know, what was it, like 20 entries, 22 different bottles. Some of them were traditional meads. Some of them were flavored. Some of them, there was even one that was a peppermint hot cocoa. That was really interesting. You could really taste the peppermint and the cocoa flavor. So it was really great to kind of taste all of them. I didn't taste all of them. I could probably only taste about 4 or 5 of them, but Ken Schramm sent his mead out too. So it was nice to see what his mead and the quality of the mead that he produces, and then all of the local meads that are produced and the range of styles, flavors, and I don't know, sweetnesses, I guess. I'm not a wine person, so I'm probably not using the correct terms, but the profiles of the meads were really interesting. Luke, you were there. You probably have more to say about the alcohol.
Yeah, I really enjoyed trying the different types. I felt like it gave me a better spectrum of, you know, ones that were done well and ones that weren't done quite so well. One of my friends, she ended up gifting me a bottle of mead that her ex had made of mulberries. And so I brought it to the mead workshop to share, and it wasn't very good at all. So I'm glad I didn't keep it for myself. But yeah, there were some really good ones. I really liked, I think there was a red currant one that I liked quite a bit from Ken Schramm. And really liked the traditional meads. I thought they were done well. I remember actually I asked Warren at Valhalla what his favorite mead was, and he told me that him and Marion back sweetened one with honey, and he said that was his favorite one. And I thought the next time that I tried to make a mead, I might try that.
Yeah, it was the first mead making kind of get together that Sheldon put together, and he's looking forward to trying to put this kind of as an annual event. It seems like it'd be fun to kind of just get people to, it's meant to be kind of a half-day learning session where it's informally, you learn a little bit, but you also just kind of get together, taste the local meads, and kind of talk bees and honey, I guess. Yeah. What else is going on in the lab, Luke, besides inspections, treatments, and robbing? Lots of robbing.
I guess, yeah, we just recently treated with Apigard, making sure to get our treatments on. So we did also do the recent checks for the mite loads, and some of them were low and some of them were high. So I'm glad that we're treating. Let's see, I guess besides, yeah, with the lab, just kind of trying to go through equipment and extract. I think extracting what we pulled recently is the main to do in our lab here. We're going to be doing that next few days, or actually, well, this next week, like early next week. And then we'll be doing APHIS surveys, and so we are looking for people who would be interested in APHIS. For APHIS, you have to have 10 or more bees in your yard, and so I'm trying to think about the other requirements. But yeah, if you have 10 or more bees in your yard, let us know, and we can look at doing an APHIS survey for you, where we check the pests and diseases if there are any. We recently checked Mark Graff's yard, and his bees looked great. Probably one of the best yards I've probably seen for APHIS so far. But it's kind of nice. I really enjoy doing APHIS. It's kind of neat to kind of see what other beekeepers are doing and offer them suggestions and advice.
Sweet. I'm Randall. I don't know if you have any last words, but I just would like to remind folks that this is the time of the season where bees become more aggressive than your normal season. So this was on Tuesday, when of course it's rainy, the bees are really mad, you're in your last yard, your hive's already open, and you really can't do much about it, but they start stinging you everywhere, and they've tagged you. In this particular case, they've tagged my bottom. So I had an incredibly hard time just finishing up this last hive because they were just they've tagged you. And so you were very aware of where your clothes fit the tightest on you at this point. And so this was a wardrobe malfunction that it was an emergency fix. I took a trash bag, I popped 2 holes in the bottom, I put my legs through it so they're tight around my calves. And I basically, these are like plastic MC Hammer pants, if you remember this guy, but they worked. It created a nice hot, humid pocket inside. But all the bees that were stinging me died because of the heat. And all the bees outside that were really wanting to sting me were no longer able to get in. So I was able to kind of close up the colony and finish up without further damage. Yeah, but I definitely went home and licked my wounds. There was definitely a lot of stings. So just a public service reminder, this is definitely the time of the season where colonies turn on you. And even if they were previously pretty friendly, when the resources start to dry up, they become much more aggressive. Make sure you've got your smokers and make sure you've got your safety gear. Do you have any issues like this with your colonies, Randall?
So we just took, not really. Yesterday I did mite checks in an alcohol wash. No stings. Our bees this year are so docile. They're so friendly. It's weird. No,
Ours are the
very low
opposite.
mites, very friendly. I don't know, huge. They're like so much honey production. They're kind of like the ideal bees. I don't know what's going on this year.
Where'd you get your bees at?
Yeah, seriously.
The queens came from Conan, I think, in California.
Nice.
Yeah, they're good.
They do a
I
good
think
job.
we've always gotten queens from them before, but they've never been like this.
Yeah, we're trying new suppliers, and these nukes came from Texas, and so some of them are spicy. They are likely Africanized, given how aggressive they are. So we've marked them this fall to make sure we requeen them with nicer bees, but we're gonna see how well they do over winter.
We have one mean colony, and it is our biggest honey producer, and it's our biggest colony. So I'm like tempted to, I can never make it all the way through to give it a full inspection.
Oh, wow.
Because they're so mean, but we get a lot of honey off of them. So
Yeah, sometimes the mean ones bring in a lot of honey.
yeah.
After a while, though, it's not worth it if the whole yard is mean like that.
Well, so do you know what Jamie Bayer told me? If you've got a hot hive, what you do is you take the deep and you move 10 or 20 feet away with that deep. And then all the guard bees are going to stick around guarding the main colony and kind of leave you alone with that deep that's probably got more, nurse bees and more kind of tranquil bees in it. And I tried it once, but the deep was really heavy. So I think I only made it about 6 feet. But it seemed to work. It seemed to kind of take the heat off of me. So maybe that's one thing other people could try and see if it works.
Maybe get like a card or something, huh?
Yeah, and just cart it around a bush, and do the inspection, and just go deep by deep. Yeah.
I don't know if carting it and the vibration of
Oh, good point. Yeah. They probably don't want to be bumped around. Yeah.
Knowing our yards, there's a lot of holes. There's a lot of ankle breaking holes. Just be on a really bouncy ride 10 feet away. Well, does anybody have any final questions or comments, announcements, events coming up? Okay, well, if not, then let us know. Email Randall's with some suggestions for topics. We're going to start thinking about what we're going to do this fall, and Randall, you should plug the IPM for Bees lectures again, because they've been really good.
Well, they've been focused primarily on researchers and extension folks. But we're going to be posting the most recent one, which was Dr. Robin Underwood talking about her really fascinating study looking at the pros and cons of conventional, natural, and organic beekeeping. And so you can really see a big difference in a lot of things, the economics, the effectiveness of people who don't want to treat their colonies whatsoever, and people who treat them, whether it's in a synthetic way or non-synthetic. And there's a lot of cool takeaways. So maybe once I get that posted to the IPM for Bees site, I'll send a link out to this listserv, because people might.
That'd be great.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because her study is one of the few that I've seen that is actually a combination of a long-term study. She's doing it multiple years, but she's also incorporating the beekeepers' input in terms of their treatments, their time, and their labor in the model to look at the cost risk benefits, so of the 3 different types of way of practicing beekeeping. I thought it was a really cool study.
Yeah, it's super cool. So yeah, I'll share that link with folks once we put that video up. She's only, since she hasn't published the paper yet, she asked that we only put it up for 30 days. So people will have a month to check it out.
Okay, sweet. Well, have a good weekend, everybody. Happy Labor Day, and get your honey off and your treatments on.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.